question. But good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this Brunel Entrepreneurial Network event. We're delighted to have you here, and throughout this event, we'll be talking about thinking innovatively for a better future. My name is Andrew Williams. I'm the Senior International Alumni Officer in the Development and Alumni Relations team. I'll be the host of the session, and I'm also joined by Kirsty Smith. So, Kirsty, would you like to introduce the three presenters, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. So we're thrilled that we have our three speakers today who have recently been awarded the 2021-22 Young Innovator Award by Innovate UK and the Prince's Trust. A fantastic achievement, recognising their projects and businesses that tackle some of our biggest societal challenges. So first off today, we will hear from Anastasia Georgievskaya, who graduated from Biomedical Sciences in 2020. She now runs a business called Scentient, which aims to create a device that emits scents in virtual reality, and it can be used to support training of military and emergency personnel. And then secondly, we have Peter Griffen here, and Peter graduated from BSc Product Design in 2021, so a more recent graduate. Peter's innovation is a piece of furniture, but one with a healthy purpose: a fully adjustable footstool for patients with lower leg edema. He created it in response to a request by staff at Royal Brompton Hospital in London, who felt the existing devices weren't up to the job. And then lastly, we will hear from Joanna Power, who is also a BSc Product Design degree graduate from 2021, same year. And we'll hear from her about Lilo. And this is a creation of a washing machine that uses filtered shower water. So the device's removable water tank is placed in the shower during showering, then returned to its base for use in the laundry process. So lots to hear about today. Back over to you, Andrew.
Okay, great. So each of our alumni will talk for up to 10 minutes before answering any questions that you have at the end of the session. So please feel free to leave these in the chat box, and Kirsty and I will ensure that these are answered for you before the end of the session. The session will last for around 45 minutes. We hope you enjoy the session, and I am going to start by handing over to Anastasia to start.
Hi, everyone. Just quickly share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so my name is Anastasia. I'm a Brunel alumni, and last year we started a business called Scentient, where we are creating a device that will let you smell virtual reality. So I studied biomedical sciences with immunology at Brunel, and then I worked for a couple of years as a research assistant in neuroimmunology, and as well had a lot of experience during my studies in science. And I'm still aspiring to be a scientist, so I'm hoping to do a PhD later on. And I'm generally a very curious person. So a few years ago, I had a heated debate about whether you can send smells from one device to another. And I think it was in 2016, it was a few years ago. And we kept on with my partner, we kept on arguing about how we can do that. And last year we came up with a solution, and we came up with an idea of how we can use that technology. And that led to Scentient. At Scentient, we are developing a device which will work together with a virtual reality setup that will let you smell what you see. And we are applying this technology to enhance the training for military for educational purposes, and for police and firefighters as well. Imagine a firefighter comes into a burning building, and the burning wood smells in one way and burning rubber smells in a different way. And we are working towards teaching them how to act in a situation where, for example, some materials would smell with a toxic fumes, and that is very dangerous, and they can't use that during training. So for them, to be able to distinguish what material is burning in a safe way, in a safe training environment, and we're aiming to provide that. During my innovation journey, we won the Young Innovators Award, and this has jump-started this whole project, and it gave me a lot of confidence in beginning all of that. But the key challenges for me have been the imposter syndrome, because I don't have any business experience, and I came into this with literally without being able to swim. I jumped into a swimming pool, and that's actually an amazing experience, and I'm battling the imposter syndrome. But there's so much support around that, from Brunel, from other universities, from everywhere, that I think I'm dealing with it pretty well, and I'm gaining a lot more confidence in what I do, because I share my idea with a lot of people, and that validates that I'm doing the right thing. Yeah, my lack of business experience actually is playing a big part, and I'm learning a lot as I go, and there are a lot of free resources online courses and books and things like that that let you kind of understand how to get your way around in the business world. And also, when you're beginning a business, when you're starting a business and beginning a whole new career, it's very difficult to balance family and work. And I think I'm learning one step at a time of doing that. And my key tips based on my experience so far is, don't let the imposter syndrome stop you. If you have an idea, talk to other people, share your experience, share your idea, and they will kind of either validate it or, just give you ideas about how to develop it into something better. And it's very important to share your idea, because if you create, for example, in my example, if I sit and create this device without talking to other people, I may create something that nobody wants, and that's a bad idea. That's the product that nobody will want. So I'm working on sharing the idea with as many people as I can, so that I can develop something useful for potential customers and for the world in general. And remember, there's a lot of support, and around you. Talk back to the university, they have a lot of support. There's a lot of different resources and organizations that help you, and find inspirational little things. Mine came from a little debate that we had that actually kept me curious for years, and I kept on coming back to it. And it's actually helping me fuel my passion for this, because I think back about how passionate I was about the scientific debate, which was hypothetical at the time, and now it keeps fueling me of going towards a bigger aim, and it's actually an incredible feeling. And please get in touch, email me, follow me on LinkedIn. I'll share my LinkedIn on the chat, and please talk to me if you have any questions or you just like to chat about your idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia. We'll now hear from Peter Griffin.
Hi guys, hope everyone's having a good day. Just make sure I share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that, hopefully? Yep.
Yes.
Cool. So, my name is Peter Griffin. I graduated product design, as was said in the introduction, and I won the Young Innovator Award for my project and business, Levata, which is a bespoke footrest for edema patients, which came about through a collaboration with Royal Brompton Hospital and the clinical staff there, who found that the footrest they had available for their patients, in blunt terms, were ugly and didn't work. So they were neither pretty or useful. and this seemed like a pretty poor fit. So we're trying to do something a little bit better than that. A background of my journey so far is that in terms of education, I started with A-levels, maths, fine art and history, which is a bit of a spread of topics. I then went to Leeds and did a year of foundation art before coming to Brunel, doing my product design BSc, during which I did a 6-month internship with Joseph Walsh out in Ireland, doing extremely high-end fine furniture work. I then came back, did a 1-month placementship with 1-month placement, I should say, with Royal Brompton Hospital on a ventilator project at the height of COVID that summer, where we took ventilators for sleep apnea patients and found ways to design attachments so that they could be used for COVID patients. My major project then was a collaboration with Royal Brompton Hospital, although a completely different part of the organisation. And from that, I won the Made in Brunel Most Manufacturable Award, and then the Young Innovator Award to turn the project into a real life business, which is fantastic. Partly because I'd forgotten I'd applied to the award, and so it was a really nice surprise to get the email saying you've won. Also shows my organisation for some of these things. I then went and did another 3-month internship with Mark Fish down near Brighton. So that's only just finished in the last month or so, and now I'm focusing on the business full time and really putting everything into it. So the company itself, as I said, it's a footrest for edema patients. That means that we're what's called a hardware startup. So there's no software necessarily involved. We're trying to make physical objects to help people, primarily in a hospital setting. However, this is also applicable for people in care homes, people in nursing homes, hospice care, and even outpatients in their private homes with their family. Because of all of those things combined, it's really important that a medical assisted device looks and feels nice to use. It's very difficult to persuade people to have a medical assisted device in their house if it looks very cold and ugly and isn't tactile and they can't adopt it as part of the family setting. So a lot of my design ended up focusing on that, as well as a long list of medical requirements out to meet so that it would actually help the patient in the way that they needed and that staff would be able to use it comfortably. That was a big problem with the footrests that are currently available. So when it comes to what does innovation mean to me and what is innovation, these are the 4 classic areas of innovation. Fundamentally, innovation means doing something new. Unfortunately, new things aren't often good. You can be new and bad without being new and good. So the challenge is to create something new that's better than what we already have. And often that just means being wrong a lot of the time and trying again and again and working around it and finding new ways to do things and comparing them to what we already have. It's most likely that you get incremental innovation where we gradually make things better over time, and then after sort of a 5 or 10 year period you realize you're miles away from where you started and things are a lot better. I'd say that's probably one of the best innovation types to focus on, because it's probably the most practical for people to implement day to day. In some ways, disruptive innovation where you make a massive change all at once is a little bit of luck in terms of the technology and timing and marketplace all coming together at once. And then what does success look like for people? So because I'm a hardware startup, I need to make things. I got a lot of experience of that at Brunel, but when you leave the university, you also leave all their workshops, their fantastic technicians and their technical expertise. So this is my parents' garage, which is also now my business's workshop. And as you can see, it's not the tidiest place in the world. It's also cold. It was about 1 degree this week when I was working in there, and there's virtually no lighting. So success, unfortunately, at an early start doesn't necessarily look like Google or Apple, big fancy offices, but it might mean doing what you're really passionate about in a setting that's yours and that you feel you can make a real change for people. And hopefully, you know, you put in the time here, it progresses forwards. And I'm hoping that by collaborating with a hospital who came up with the problem that needed to be solved, and then talking to other areas of the medical device industry, we'll be able to make something that actually impacts people's lives and really makes a difference to the care they receive. And then some tips to success. I'd say one of the biggest things for me about coming to Brunel was that I chose it because for me, it was the best product design course for the things I wanted to do. And that helped my success as far as I've been successful, because I was around a lot of designers who were really, really good at design. Joanna in particular is a fantastic product designer. And being around that cohort meant that that set my baseline for work quality very high. And then you learn to work within that group. It's also the same when you go into the workplace and you try and get a job. You want to try and work at a company or at a business that does exceptional work in whatever field you work in. And so that often requires a lot of persistence to get into those companies. A good example would be my placement year. I applied for over 50 companies and got one offer to go and work, and that was with Joseph Walsh in Ireland. But I'd only applied to places that I thought did excellent work, and that really helps set your standards for what good work should be and how to set up your business, how to organize things, how to problem solve. All of that comes together when you're in that kind of an environment. Apart from that, doing work outside your university course is extremely beneficial because you learn so much more than you necessarily would as part of the curriculum. It's amazing how much you don't know to begin with at university and how much broader your area of study is than you're aware of. I went and worked in high-end furniture, and then I've tried to bring some of those techniques back to the medical design, because when I worked in medical design at Royal Brompton, everything's very functional and streamlined for the NHS, but it misses out the part where we're trying to deliver devices for people to use every day and not for robots to use. And that can be a really important thing to learn, but I didn't know I had to learn that until I went and worked in lots of different places and brought that all together. And because there's a whole lot of things you don't know, you sort of have to be aware of your own blind spots and your own inadequacies. And then you don't have to be perfect at everything. But if you can find people who are really good at the things you don't know and bring them on board or chat to them or collaborate with them, that's going to help you immensely, and you'll be able to build relationships with those people long term. And it makes a really big difference. Yeah, if people have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And likewise, I'll put my contacts in the chat. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Peter. We'll come to questions at the end, but if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box, whether it's anything based on what Anastasia or Peter has said. We'll be happy to get those answered for you. I'll now pass over to Joanna.
Okay, make sure I unmute. Okay, awesome. So I'm Joanna. I studied product design engineering at Brunel, and I was in Peter's cohort, and I developed a company called Lilo Products. So England is set to run short of water within 25 years. It's absolutely terrifying as a rainy country, how kind of bleak and dry the future actually looks. Pretty similar to how Anastasia mentioned, sitting in the shower, I was thinking, you know, watching all this water drain away, how terrible we are as humans to just allow this great water to go. And so I started looking at other things as a student that require water, and I found the washing machines. They use on average 50 to 80 litres per cycle, which is enormous and such a large amount to visualise. And so I started thinking of ways to reuse shower water for the laundry industry to kind of promote people to reuse and think in a kind of circular way. So that's where we developed the Lilo. So how the Lilo works is you have a mat on the side of the product that you place on the floor. And when you shower on top of it, this collects and stores the water that is then filtered and used in the laundry process. So all of the water that you're using is completely recycled from your shower water and safe. So Lilo's journey. We've had quite a long journey over the last 2 years. It started in the Mayor of London's contest. We got to the finals with just a few sketches and CADs. And we realised, like, oh gosh, we've got quite far with this. And that contest really helped us build a business plan, because myself and my co-founder are both just design engineers. And so business terrified us. From there, we entered the Red Bull Basement contest and got all the way to the global finals and won for the UK. And that was a great experience because we managed to practice presenting and got really good insights on how Red Bull market and present themselves as a company. From there, we moved on to the CRL Accelerator, which is a hardware-specific accelerator. And we were able to build and prototype our product to test the major assumptions before moving on to building a whole washing machine. Since then, we've won the Young Innovators Award, which has really helped give us one-to-one business coaching and working with a professional. Most recently, we joined the Greenhouse program at Imperial, and that's really helped with connecting us with eco-funding bodies and talking to accommodation centres and looking at a business-to-business model. So innovation for Lilo. I think the important thing to remember with innovation is it isn't just the product or system or software itself, it's the method of how you build your business. So when Lilo originally started, we were in lockdown. I didn't have access to the lovely facilities that Peter mentioned. And so I was on my placement with a hot glue gun and some card. And I made the most of what I had to develop kind of the shell and the idea for this product. From there, we worked with Red Bull and we were given a 3D printer and some more prototyping facilities. And we were able to build a life-size model. And this is the first time that it started really becoming real to us because we could see this product in real life. When we moved to CRL, we took a different approach to innovation. Rather than spending tens of thousands building the washing machine that worked, it was important for us to address our assumptions. So we worked on checking how much water will actually fill within the tank and how long someone needed to shower. We started checking things like, was our dipping method in the washing machine going to actually wash clothes effectively? And we also created the little mini Lilo, which is on my shelf over there, to take with us when we travelled to talk to grant funders and other companies. And so we decided not to spend loads of money jumping in building it, but actually think of cheaper, smarter little ways to make steps through to get us further funding. So innovation is only innovation if it works. And the thing about that is you need to test it and be able to show people that it works. So as I mentioned before, we did some wash tests with our machine versus a commercial machine to check that the wash quality was just as good. And we also completed water tests with a lab up north that looked at our water and check that the sulfate levels were safe enough to wash your clothes in and wouldn't create skin irritation. So these are some of the most important things for us. So our top 3 tips. Our first tip is definitely to protect your brand. A lot of people jump in thinking about their hardware and their software, but the way you communicate as a company is often in your brand. And so I really do recommend to everyone to start by coming up with a solid name, getting a trademark for it, getting a website and getting a socials, because you'll be doing a lot of talking to your customers and your customers need somewhere to approach you and understand and interact with you. because at the end of the day, your customers are your judge, jury, and executioner. So you really need to present yourself well. Our second tip is to have an innovative team. I know a lot of people, when they go into entrepreneurship, worry that they don't have business skills. We didn't either. We had no business skills, no understanding. But the great thing is, if you have an innovative team where the core members can build your minimal viable products and your core members can develop and understand the actual problem, you'll get a lot further than actually just having business knowledge. For students in design, engineering, coding, IT, there are loads of companies out there to help make sure you as a company build the skills and get the help you need. There are companies like Autodesk, Siemens, and SolidWorks that all run programs for new companies to have free software to help them build from home. Mouser, RS also have component systems that they can send out to you as a new startup. And Central Research Lab, Royal Academy of Engineering, Dragon Innovation are all other great companies that want to make sure that hardware creators are at the heart of their business. And so definitely developing that kind of innovative team is a really important tip. And the third one kind of builds off what was mentioned before. You don't need to know everything. So when we first started, we knew nothing. But there was one important thing that we knew, and that was that we knew something, we knew a problem and an innovative way to solve that problem. And that small bit of knowledge is the actual important thing. And from there, you can build and you can meet companies and accelerators and contests and loads of opportunities to actually get there. So I think the important thing is, if you know something innovative, you're doing pretty well. Thank you for watching. If you want to pop any questions in the chat, and I'll also be throwing in my LinkedIn so you can connect with me and drop me questions at any point and I'll try and help.
Thank you, Joanna. That was really interesting from all three of you, and it's been an event that I've been really looking forward to since seeing you become winners of the recent Innovators Award. I thought it was really fantastic hearing about your successes, but also you were all very honest in identifying that you don't have everything and that you've had to learn a lot along the way. We've had a couple of questions come in, so I'm going to start with a question from Ruthie. It's, how can you ensure that the money you are receiving in funding and awards is coming from somewhere that aligns with your beliefs and aims? So do we have someone who'd be willing to answer that, or should I dive in and nominate one of you?
I'm happy to give it a go, yeah.
Thank you.
I'd say the first thing you can do to ensure that any funding you get aligns with your beliefs and aims is to be very honest about what your beliefs and aims are at the very start, so that in your application forms, in your discussions with potential funding bodies, you make it clear what you're trying to achieve and why. And then in some ways, the people who aren't interested in your aims won't talk to you anymore. And you'll only be left talking to the people who have the same aims and beliefs as you. So that's a good starting point. The other option is to, or the other method would be doing quite a lot of research about the funding bodies before you apply to them. For example, if you're going to apply to the Royal Academy of Engineers, as Joanna mentioned, because they've got several routes of funding for startup businesses or more mature businesses that want to grow, look into what it is they're really interested in funding. If they're really passionate about environmental stuff and you don't have an environmental product, then it's just not a great match for you. And also your application is going to be less likely to succeed. If they've got lots of funding for biomedical sciences that's out there at the moment and you've got a biomedical product, then that's a really good match. I'd say that's probably your best bet for trying to make sure it all aligns, is honesty and then research into the companies or the bodies that you're going for.
Great, thank you, Peter. So Joanna, Anastasia, did you want to add anything to that, or are you happy with Peter's answer?
Yeah, can I jump in? Sorry, Joanna. So I think when you're looking for either an angel investor or a VC, they would be a good investor would be transparent about their values, about what they're investing in, and it is very important to them. If they have, if your business aligns with their values, because it's a partnership, it's a relationship that you're building, and it's very important that you're on the same page. And also in terms of grant funds, like Peter already mentioned, places like Royal Academy of Engineering and Innovate UK that funded our businesses, they are, the money is coming from the taxpayers. This is a government grant, and they chose us, and they trust in our values and in our ideas. So the organizations that offer you grants, loans, and things like that, they're very transparent about their values. And so it's very important to do your research, and like Peter mentioned, and it's very important to do your research about even a single person, like an angel investor, who is going to fund your business. There's plenty of information online, and you can always ask them, and talk to them. Yeah. Okay,
great, thank you. And Joanna, did you want to say something there? I saw you come off mute, or shall we move on to the next question?
Oh yeah, I was going to mention pretty much the same. Go for grants and contests and accelerators rather than necessarily equity funding at the start, because it is difficult to check they align with your beliefs. But when the money comes without any equity, it's still your beliefs.
Lovely, thanks. Joanna, actually, maybe we can ask this question to you. If you could maybe put the mic a little bit closer to your mouth as well, we can hear a bit bigger. This one was wanting to know how you took your first step. So when you had your idea and believed it could actually be the real thing, how did you do that? When did you know?
I think for us, we applied to a lot of contests, because when we initially created the product, we didn't really know how much people were going to react to it and if they liked it or not, whether they were going to be disgusted at this idea of reusing water. And so honestly, a great first step is to enter contests in your area, because if you do well there, it's a really good sign, and you often then get help and support. You see your peers that do well, so even if you don't initially succeed, you see what success looks like and how they're presenting themselves. And so honestly, I think contests are such a good start.
Thanks. And Anastasia, you talked about imposter syndrome as well, almost. So this idea of believing in your product, is there anything that you learned along the way about taking that first step to believe in your idea?
Yes. So for us, it wasn't a product, it was just an idea of, using smell and in some way in a digital world, because, it's been, people tried to do it since the 60s, to add it to the TV, to add it to, any kind of visual, the smell-o-vision, they call it. And, for us, it was an idea, how do you apply it? And, there's been a lot of rounds of brainstorms. And once we saw that there's potential in the virtual reality, we kept on brainstorming, because where do we apply it? Because it's very, hard to sell it to a consumer, because people are not willing to, they're willing to pay for a big PlayStation, and that's expensive, and then add on another device that's going to be another couple of £100. It's very hard to sell it to people. So we actually found a really good direction, which is the training of military emergency services, and it's given a purpose to the idea and the technology for us. So and that literally happened a year ago, when we found the path that we could take, and from then on it just escalated really quickly, and we applied to the Young Innovators Award, and that's what helped us kind of jumpstart.
Awesome, thank you. And
okay.
You got it, Andrew? Yep.
So a question for you to start with then, Peter. It's from Karen. What would you say has been your biggest learning curve in setting up your business?
That's a great question. So setting up the business was a bit of a surprise, because in my mind, the project was my major project for my final year of my degree. And then it'd gone well despite COVID and the restrictions in place. We had a successful Made in Brunel showcase in London. And I thought, well, I'll try applying to this award just to see what happens. It can't hurt anything. It didn't cost me anything other than time to write the application. And as I said, completely forgot that I'd applied. A couple of months later, get the email while I'm sort of relaxing on a Saturday morning. So the biggest learning curve was changing the mindset of this was a university project. I'm working with my professors and my supervisors, and it's for the aim of getting a degree, to now the purpose of this is to actually make it real and turn it into a viable business and actually try and provide these footrests for people in the real world, which means talking a lot more to the hospitals, talking more to other interest groups who might be relevant, and also acknowledging that I'm not the most organized person. That was very obvious in my degree already. And then you could say that I'm a bad employee and an even worse boss. So putting all of that together to running a business is just a really big mind shift, because I'd worked at plenty of places previously, and it's fine because you don't have to make all the decisions. You have the thing you're working on and you crack on with that. But then when you're running everything at once, yeah, it's just a big mind shift to make, and you've got to try and keep everything going at once.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to bring two questions into one here because I'm aware of time. And Joanna, I'll go to you if that's all right. So it's about team. And obviously team is very important for any startup. So I guess, how did you find the perfect team? But another question we've had in is around co-founders. And I know you've obviously got a co-founder at Lilo Products. So where did you meet your co-founder? How did that come about? And any thoughts around how to find the perfect team if you look to expand, etc., and who you work with?
Definitely. So as I mentioned, I have
just bring the mic a little bit closer to your mouth to be able to hear it. Awesome.
Is that any better?
Is it? Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I have a co-founder that was actually one of the other members of my cohort, so another product design engineering student, and so we met on the course, but we started Lilo during the placement because I was working in manufacture and it was very boring and I wanted to create something. And he was working more in marketing and branding. And he was actually a student that I looked up to. I saw his work and it was amazing. I loved everything he did. And so I did approach him and kind of mention the idea and get them involved, mainly just because of how much I loved their work. And so if I have any tip, it's, while you're at university, you are in this hub of amazing people. And there's always going through people on your course or other courses that you look up to so much. And if you honestly feel like their values align and that they will understand your business, then definitely just message them, have a sit down, have a coffee, take your idea to them. Don't feel like you need to necessarily kind of post a job application and make it very formal. That's quite a later stage thing. So I don't know if that answers it fully.
No, that's useful, your approach. Anastasia and Peter, do you have anything to add to that from, I guess, a graduate perspective, post-university, and how you work with people or who you choose to work with, I guess?
So in terms of co-founders, there are websites, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there are websites where you can find co-founders and you can just, share your idea online and then, basically pretty much hire a person to be a co-founder. So there are places that you can meet and interview people, to be part of your team, to make sure their values align with what you're creating. I actually have a co-founder as well, but mine is actually my husband. He is an engineer. And, the debate started many years ago when we were still dating, and we kept on, fueling it together. So for me, it was easy to find. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say I don't have a co-founder, and that's not necessarily a strength. It's definitely better to kind of build a team and spread the workload out. part of the reason I don't have a co-founder yet is because the project grew out of my major project, and the major project is sort of solitary work. It's not a group project, and all my friends and designers were doing their own major projects. So it would be plagiarism to collaborate on each other's major projects in university, and I'm not recommending that at all. And then because the business has been sort of a surprise to set up, it's just not something I've got around to doing yet, but I have a lot of support from friends, family, and my partner, who are very patient with me and give me a lot of their time. It's very kind of them.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the last question before we wrap up. So it's come from Lynn. How much equity trade-off is generally expected in a pre-seed phase of investment? Who would like to answer that one?
I'll give it a go if no one else is jumping
Okay,
at
brilliant.
it. So that's such a difficult question because it depends on the size of the market you're trying to address, how far through your process you are. So I think it's a scale, a readiness scale that you can look up, which is a great way to help you estimate kind of where you are. So it has like your business readiness scale, your product readiness scale, and then you can use these numbers to kind of understand where you sit in your whole process. And that's a great way to really help understand how much your business is worth. Another way is looking at previous companies that have done or are going in the direction that you want to go in, and have a look at when they raised, how much they raised, as a great way to kind of use them as an example. But honestly, it's a world of kind of picking numbers, picking things people have done, and as long as you have a reason behind why you're pitching what you're pitching, you should be okay.
Great, thank you very much, Joanna. So we'll conclude there, but I just want to finish by saying a big thank you to Joanna, Peter, and Anastasia. Like I said before, it was really an event that I was looking forward to, and you've lived up to my expectations. Hearing about your businesses was really insightful, and you've shared some really valuable knowledge in answering those questions as well. So a big thank you very much. I have posted the link to the Brunel Entrepreneurial Network in the chat, so we will share the recording in that group, and you are more than welcome to join the group as well. Kirsty, did you want to say any concluding words?
No, all it is to just thank our speakers for their time, for sharing your insights. I know there's lots of people here that are on different stages of their entrepreneurial journeys, and I'm sure it's always really useful to just hear other perspectives on some of the learnings that you've had along the way. So great to hear from you, appreciate it. And everyone that has attended today, if you haven't already, please join the Brunel Entrepreneurial Network. You can access the recording, and we'll share more info on opportunities in the future. Sometimes we come across funding opportunities, which we post in there, or other events or networking opportunities. Other than that, all it is to wish everyone a lovely rest of the day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.